On the evening of June 7, 2021, a man calls 911. His voice is urgent. He says he has found his wife and son shot dead at their hunting estate in South Carolina. He says he was away. He says he just came back and found them. Everything he said on that call would eventually be tested against a video that his son had recorded minutes before the shooting, and the video told a different story. Before June 7, 2021, the name Murdaugh meant something specific in South Carolina. 3 generations of lawyers, dominant in Hampton County courts for nearly a century. The kind of family where the question wasn't whether you'd go to law school, it was which one. Subscribe to Frond and hit the bell. Every case we cover is real, source-backed, and on the public record. Stay with this one, because the further you go into the Murdaugh story, the more layers there are, and every single one matters. This is the case of Alex Murdaugh, a former South Carolina attorney, a powerful family name, a 2023 conviction, a 2026 reversal, and a new murder trial now scheduled for April 5, 2027. Hampton County, South Carolina, a small rural county in the state's lowcountry. Quiet, insular, the kind of place where the same families have held power for generations, and for nearly a century, the most powerful name in Hampton County law was Murdaugh. Alex Murdaugh was born into that family in 1968. He followed the expected path: law school, the family firm, personal injury practice. He married Maggie. They had 2 sons, Buster and Paul. They had Moselle, a sprawling rural hunting estate in Colleton County. From the outside, it was a life of extraordinary privilege. But beneath that surface, something else had been building for years. From the early 2000s, Alex Murdaugh had developed a severe opioid addiction. And to fund it and to sustain the lifestyle that came with the family name, he began stealing. From his clients, from his law firm, from grieving families who had come to him for help. Prosecutors would eventually allege that Alex Murdaugh stole somewhere between $8 and $10 million over the course of years, from dozens of clients, from settlement funds that belonged to grieving families, and from his own law partners who had no idea. In February 2018, the family housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, who had worked for the Murdaughs for years, died after falling down the steps at Moselle. Prosecutors later alleged that Alex Murdaugh convinced her sons he would help them sue for her death and then kept the settlement money himself, approximately $500,000 that should have gone to them. In February 2019, Alex's younger son Paul was driving a boat at night when it crashed into a bridge, killing a 19-year-old passenger named Mallory Beach. Paul was drunk. He was charged with boating under the influence, and as the case moved toward trial, the Murdaugh family's legal connections were being watched closely for any interference. By the spring of 2021, the storm that had been building for years was beginning to close in on Alex Murdaugh. The boat crash investigation was ongoing. Questions about the Satterfield money were growing. His law firm was starting to ask questions about client funds. He was, by his own later admission, a severe opioid addict spending enormous sums to sustain it. Moselle was the family's rural retreat in Colleton County, a sprawling hunting estate with kennels, a main house, and miles of private land. It was where the family came to escape. On the evening of June 7, 2021, it became the center of a murder investigation. June 7, 2021. Prosecutors allege this is what happened. Alex Murdaugh leaves the kennel area. He drives to his parents' home to visit his mother. Around 9 p.m., he returns to Moselle. He calls 911. Police arrive to find Maggie and Paul Murdaugh dead near the kennels. Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were found near the dog kennels on the estate property, not at the main house. Maggie had been shot multiple times with a rifle-style weapon. Paul had been shot twice with a shotgun. They were found together in the same area of the property. No murder weapon was ever recovered. Alex Murdaugh told police he had left Moselle that evening to go visit his elderly mother. He said he was not at the kennels when the shootings occurred. He said he returned, found them, and called 911. That alibi held until a video that prosecutors say changed everything. During the trial, prosecutors played a video recorded on Paul Murdaugh's phone at 8:44 in the evening. just minutes before the shootings. In the video, Paul was at the kennels, filming the dogs, and in the background of that video, unmistakably, you could hear Alex Murdaugh's voice. He was there, at the kennels, at 8:44 p.m., not at his mother's. The video placed Alex Murdaugh at the kennels at 8:44 p.m. The 911 call reporting the bodies was made at approximately 9:02 p.m. That is an 18-minute window. Prosecutors said everything happened in that window. The defense said the voice could not be confirmed. During the trial, Alex Murdaugh took the witness stand, and under oath he admitted something he had been denying since the night of June 7th. He had lied to police. He had been at the kennels that evening. He now said that was true. What he continued to deny was that he had anything to do with the shootings. He told the court he had lied to police about being at the kennels. He said, "And I'm so sorry that I did." The courtroom held in the kind of silence that follows a confession. The prosecution's position was that the lie was not incidental. It was the key. Prosecution argued that Alex Murdaugh had a motive. His vast financial crimes were about to be exposed. The boat crash civil case was forcing discovery. His law partners were asking questions. His addiction was consuming resources. Prosecutor Creighton Waters told the jury a gathering storm was closing in, and prosecutors allege Murdaugh killed his family to buy time and generate sympathy. Multiple pressures were converging on Alex Murdaugh simultaneously. The boat crash civil case, the law firm questions, the missing client money, each one pulling at a thread of a life built on debt, theft, and a name that had protected him for decades. Prosecutors said he chose to burn it all before it burned him. The defense argued that the evidence was circumstantial, that being at the kennels did not make him a killer, that the real perpetrators were unknown, possibly connected to Paul's boat crash case and the enemies it had made. Defense attorney Dick Harpootlian said the state's case was filled with theories and conjecture. 3 months after Maggie and Paul were found dead, something extraordinary happened. Alex Murdaugh pulled over on a South Carolina road and called a man to shoot him in the head. Investigators say he orchestrated this to appear to be an attempted murder victim, to generate sympathy and secure a $10 million life insurance payment for his surviving son, Buster. The shot only grazed Alex Murdaugh's head. He survived. He called 911 again. Investigators who responded quickly began to suspect something was wrong with the account. Within days, the alleged scheme to fake his own death for insurance money began to unravel. His law firm had already begun the process of dismissing him. As the murder investigation continued, Alex Murdaugh's financial crimes were being fully uncovered. He was eventually indicted on 22 federal counts and 99 state charges related to financial crimes totaling between $8 and $10 million stolen from clients and his law firm over years. Among the most devastating of Alex Murdaugh's alleged financial schemes was what prosecutors said he did to the family of Gloria Satterfield, the housekeeper who died at Moselle. Her sons trusted him. He promised to recover the money owed to them, and then prosecutors allege he pocketed approximately $500,000 that belonged to them. In early September 2021, his law partners confronted Alex Murdaugh about missing client funds. The same day, September 3rd, he was pushed out of the firm. The following day was the alleged staged shooting. Investigators noted the timing. On July 14, 2022, more than a year after the shootings, a Colleton County grand jury indicted Alex Murdaugh on 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of possessing a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. He pleaded not guilty. Trial began January 25, 2023, in Walterboro, South Carolina. The eyes of the nation were on it. Live-streamed, picked apart in real time, the subject of documentaries and podcasts before the verdict was even reached. The Murdaugh trial became something rare, a true crime case unfolding in public, in real time. The prosecution had no murder weapon, no eyewitnesses, no DNA connecting Murdaugh to the shootings. What they argued they had was a video placing him at the scene, a lie he admitted to, a motive built on financial collapse, and a pattern of behavior that they said told a story even without direct evidence. On February 1, 2023, prosecutors played the video Paul had recorded at 8:44 p.m. in the kennel. For the first time in open court, people heard what prosecutors said was Alex Murdaugh's voice, in the background of the last video his son ever recorded, placing him at the scene he had denied being at. When Alex Murdaugh took the witness stand, his cross-examination was one of the most watched moments of the trial. Prosecutor Creighton Waters pressed him on inconsistencies, on the lies, on the financial crimes. At one point, Murdaugh displayed strong emotion, and the next day Waters pressed him further, harder. After more than 5 weeks of testimony, the jury began deliberating on the afternoon of March 2, 2023. They deliberated for less than 3 hours. They asked the judge no questions. When they returned, their verdict was ready. On March 2, 2023, the jury found Alex Murdaugh guilty on all 4 counts. 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of possessing a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. The verdict took less than 3 hours to reach. He looked shattered as it was read. His surviving son Buster sat in the gallery, shaking his head. March 2023. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all 4 counts. 2 counts of murder. 2 counts of possessing a weapon during a violent crime. The following day, Judge Clifton Newman sentenced Murdaugh to 2 consecutive life sentences. Judge Clifton Newman's sentencing statement was direct. He told Murdaugh that he had looked into his eyes and was not sure he saw any remorse. He sentenced him to 2 consecutive life sentences, no possibility of parole. Then he said something that rang through the room. "I hope you'll use your time to make peace with God." A Murdaugh, for the first time in nearly a century of Hampton County legal dominance, had been convicted of a crime in the same legal system his family had helped shape. The trial that had gripped the nation was over, or so everyone thought. Separate from the murder conviction, Alex Murdaugh was also dealt with on his financial crimes. In federal court, he received a 40-year sentence. In state court on his financial crimes, he received 27 years. He was, it seemed, going to spend the rest of his life in prison regardless of the murder case. His attorneys filed an appeal, not on the evidence, not on the testimony, on something that had happened behind the scenes during the trial itself, something involving the clerk of court, the jury, and a conversation that was never supposed to happen. During the trial, the clerk of court, Rebecca Hill, had communicated with jurors in ways that were improper. Specifically, defense attorneys later alleged she had suggested to jurors that Murdaugh's testimony was untrustworthy. That influence, they argued, had contaminated the verdict. The trial judge later denied a motion for a new trial related to Rebecca Hill's conduct, but the defense appealed to the South Carolina Supreme Court. Hill later wrote a book about the trial, which defense attorneys said further demonstrated her improper involvement with the case and with the jurors. The South Carolina Supreme Court agreed to hear the appeal. In their review, the justices examined the conduct of the trial clerk, her interactions with the jury, and whether those interactions had egregiously undermined Murdaugh's right to a fair trial. On May 13, 2026, the South Carolina Supreme Court issued its ruling. Unanimous, 5-0. The murder convictions of Alex Murdaugh were overturned. The court found that the clerk's conduct had egregiously attacked Murdaugh's credibility with the jury. A new trial was ordered. May 13, 2026. The South Carolina Supreme Court overturns Alex Murdaugh's murder convictions unanimously. Jury clerk interference found to have egregiously attacked Murdaugh's credibility. New trial ordered. He remains in prison on financial crime sentences. The overturn does not mean Alex Murdaugh is innocent. The South Carolina Supreme Court was explicit. They found procedural error in how the trial was conducted, not that the evidence was insufficient. A new trial means the case has to be tried again properly, without the clerk's interference. As of 2026, Alex Murdaugh remains in South Carolina prison, not on the murder conviction, which has been overturned, but on his federal and state financial crime sentences. He received 40 years federally and 27 years on state financial charges. He is not free. He is waiting for a new murder trial. A new murder trial means prosecutors will have to present the same evidence again, without the tainted jury. The kennel video, the admitted lie. The motive built on financial collapse. The defense will present their case again, and a new jury will decide. The Murdaugh case is not one story. It is at least 5, a double homicide, A financial fraud spanning years, a staged death for insurance money, a housekeeper whose family was allegedly robbed of their grief settlement, and a boat crash that killed a 19-year-old and started a chain of legal pressure that prosecutors argue contributed to everything that followed. In all of this, the legal proceedings, the financial crimes, the Supreme Court ruling, it is important to stop and say their names. Maggie Murdaugh, 52 years old. Paul Murdaugh, 22 years old. Whatever the courts ultimately decide about who is responsible, they are gone. That is permanent and unchanged by any ruling. That kitchen, or one like it, is empty now. The ordinary morning routines that existed before June 7, 2021 do not exist anymore. Whatever the courts decide, that is the permanent fact at the center of this case. 2 people who were alive at 8:44 in the evening were gone by 9 o'clock. Buster Murdaugh, Alex's surviving son, sat in the gallery during the trial. He watched his father convicted. He has had to navigate the collapse of a family and a name that once meant power in South Carolina. Whatever comes next for his father legally, Buster will carry this the rest of his life. The Satterfield sons, whose mother died at Moselle and whose settlement money prosecutors say was stolen by Alex Murdaugh, are still in the process of seeking what was taken from them. Their case ran through the civil courts parallel to the criminal proceedings. Their mother's name deserves to be part of this story. There is one more name in this story, Stephen Smith, 19 years old, whose body was found on a Hampton County road in 2015, years before the Murdaugh murders. Investigators reopened his case based on information gathered during the Murdaugh investigation. In 2023, his death was reclassified as a homicide. No arrests have been made. The Murdaugh name meant something specific in South Carolina for nearly 100 years. After June 7, 2021, it means something else. The law firm is gone. Alex Murdaugh has been disbarred. The family's century of Hampton County legal dominance ended not in a courtroom decision. It ended at a kennel on a summer evening. The Murdaugh trial became one of the most closely watched legal proceedings in recent American history. It spawned documentary series on Netflix and HBO Max, dozens of podcasts, and a national conversation about power, privilege, and what happens when the people who run the legal system are also the ones accused of crimes. For the people who loved Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, whoever those people are beyond the immediate family, the Supreme Court ruling means the case is not over. The verdict they watched delivered in March 2023 no longer stands. They will have to go through it again. The Murdaugh case is not finished. The murder charges are not resolved. The financial crime sentences stand. The retrial is scheduled for April 5, 2027. Stephen Smith's case remains open. And at the center of all of it are 2 people who were alive at a kennel on a June evening in 2021, and a timeline the next jury will hear again. Moselle, the Murdaugh family estate in Colleton County, was sold as the financial crimes investigation unraveled. The hunting property where Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were found is no longer in the family's possession. The land continues to exist. The kennel area where they were found is still there. The kennel area at Moselle was the last place Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were alive. Paul recorded his last video there at 8:44 p.m. Maggie was beside him. And whatever happened in the 18 minutes that followed changed everything, for a family, for a county, for a name that had stood for a century. Paul Murdaugh recorded his last video at 8:44 p.m. on June 7, 2021. He was 22 years old. He was filming the dogs. The video was ordinary and unremarkable, until it became the most important piece of evidence in one of the most watched trials in recent American history. The new murder trial will require prosecutors to rebuild their case before a new, untainted jury. The evidence is the same. The witnesses are the same. The kennel video still exists. The admitted lie still exists. The financial crime motive still exists. The question is whether a new jury, properly instructed, reaches the same conclusion. The Murdaugh case raised questions that go beyond one family in one South Carolina county. When the most powerful legal name in a community is accused of crimes, who investigates, who prosecutes, who judges, and what happens to the people those questions leave behind? June 7, 2021. A summer evening on a South Carolina estate. A video recorded at 8:44. A 911 call at 9:02, 18 minutes, 2 people gone, and a case that is, as of 2026, still not finished. Maggie Murdaugh was 52. Paul Murdaugh was 22. The deaths were on June 7, 2021. The 2023 murder convictions were overturned on May 13, 2026. The retrial is now scheduled for April 5, 2027. Alex Murdaugh's new murder trial is scheduled for April 5, 2027. The financial crime sentences continue regardless. The cases surrounding the Murdaugh family, Gloria Satterfield, Stephen Smith, the Mallory Beach boat crash civil case, all have their own ongoing threads. The Murdaugh story is not over. It is simply in its next chapter. He called 911 to report their bodies. He said he had just come back and found them. He said he was not there. And then, during trial, a video his son had recorded at 8:44 p.m. placed him exactly where he said he was not. That call and that video are the two pieces of this story that do not change regardless of what any court decides. Somewhere on that estate on the evening of June 7, 2021, 2 people went from alive to gone in 18 minutes. Whatever any court ultimately decides, that is the fact that does not move. Maggie Murdaugh, Paul Murdaugh, a summer evening, and a case that the courts of South Carolina are still working to answer for. Sources for this investigation are in the description. CNN, ABC News, NPR, Fox News trial coverage, Britannica, the AOL Independent minute-by-minute trial reconstruction, the South Carolina Supreme Court opinion, and AP-ABC retrial coverage, all facts from verified public court record. Convictions overturned May 13, 2026. Retrial scheduled for April 5, 2027. If this case stayed with you, hit the like button, subscribe to Frond, and tap the bell. We cover real cases, real families, real systems. Maggie and Paul Murdaugh deserve to be remembered as people, not just as a case. We'll see you in the next one. On the witness stand, Alex Murdaugh spoke about his wife and son. He said he loved them. He said there was no possible way he could have harmed them. His brother Randy had said the same thing on the night of the murders, that Alex loved Maggie and Paul like nothing else on earth. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. The jury had to decide between 2 competing versions. The prosecution's theory that Alex Murdaugh, facing financial ruin and exposure, made a calculated and devastating choice on June 7, 2021, and the defense theory that an unknown perpetrator killed Maggie and Paul, while the father who found them is innocent. Mallory Beach was 19 years old when Paul Murdaugh's boat crashed into a bridge in February 2019. She died. Her family filed a civil lawsuit against the Murdaugh family. Paul was killed before the case went to trial. Her family is one more thread in the Murdaugh story that extends far beyond the double homicide. Alex Murdaugh admitted on the stand that he was a severe opioid addict, spending up to $40,000 a month on pills at the height of his addiction. His attorneys argued this context mattered. The prosecution argued it explained why millions of dollars were being stolen, but not why 2 people were dead. After the trial, court clerk Rebecca Hill wrote and published a book about her experience. Defense attorneys cited the book as further evidence of her improper involvement with the case, her sense of ownership over a trial she was supposed to administer neutrally. The South Carolina Supreme Court agreed it was a problem. A fair trial requires that jurors form their verdict based only on evidence presented in court, not on conversations with courthouse staff, not on impressions formed outside the courtroom. When that standard is violated, the verdict is compromised regardless of whether the defendant is guilty or not. Alex Murdaugh's new murder trial is scheduled to begin on April 5, 2027. The case that began with a 911 call on June 7, 2021 is heading back to a South Carolina courtroom. A new jury. A renewed fight over evidence. The same unanswered question about what happened in those 18 minutes. The first jury deliberated for less than 3 hours in a 5-week trial involving a century of family history, millions of dollars of stolen money, a staged shooting, an admitted lie, and a video recorded 18 minutes before 2 people died. 3 hours. The Supreme Court said those 3 hours were tainted. The next jury will decide again. Whatever any court decides now or in a new trial, Maggie Murdaugh and Paul Murdaugh were real people. A mother, a son, people who existed before any of this, who had mornings and evenings and ordinary days. June 7, 2021 was supposed to be one of those ordinary days. Sources for this investigation are in the description: CNN, ABC News, NPR, Fox News, Britannica, The Independent, minute-by-minute trial reconstruction, the South Carolina Supreme Court opinion, and AP-ABC retrial coverage. Convictions overturned May 13, 2026. Retrial scheduled for April 5, 2027. Everything you saw is from the verified public record. If this case stayed with you, hit the like button, subscribe to Frond, and tap the bell. We cover real cases, real families, real systems. Maggie and Paul Murdaugh deserve to be remembered as people, not just as a case. We'll see you in the next one.